We're kind of on the clock tonight, so we're going to try to move things along expeditiously. So welcome, everybody. This is the September 14th, 2023 School Building Committee meeting. Our first item on the agenda is the approval of the August 24 minutes. Is there a motion regarding the minutes? Steve? Or, okay. Steve and Chris, are there any corrections? Okay, then all in favor of approving the minutes, please indicate. Opposed or abstentions? Okay. Rich will abstain.
And I abstain.
Okay.
I wasn't there.
Okay. All right. Then that brings us the opportunity for public input. So anyone from the public would like to address the committee? Seeing none, we'll move on. Before we get into the other updates, I would like to ask Peter and Kate to give us a rundown of how the school started.
Yeah, happy to do so. So we had a very strong opening. Recalling our last time that we gathered as a school building committee, and there was a lot on the table, but we had a super strong opening. We had convocation where many people commented on just the venue itself was comfortable for a lot of adults. Sound was great. It was nice to have air conditioning through the heat wave. First time ever that we did not have to worry about heat days. And our opening, thanks to Kate and the administrative team and teachers who really just each year pour on the magic, but we're able to have a quick meet and greet prior to the first day, and then open house was last night. And so we're thrilled. And I know that there are a couple topics that we're very interested in, but the dishwasher has been flawlessly working. It looks great, and just settling in. So kudos to everybody in the building. Look great. The rainy summer afforded a lovely, luscious field for the first time that kids were able to go out, which is nice. And the playscapes are open. So we were very happy with that. So thank you. Kate, do you want to add?
I think you summed it up. We last night it was an endless stream of parents telling us just how amazing the building is and how warm and inviting it was to be in now that we're living in the space, and the feedback was overwhelmingly positive.
Great. And it was quite a relief, I think, for school to remain open through the heat wave when everybody else is closing down.
Everyone else was closing. And so my colleagues were not too happy that I had nothing to say about early closings and buses and all of that stuff, but we were happy to help them. But more importantly, the fact that staff were relatively comfortable in our buildings. And I think that, our community is now understanding that MES sets a new bar and standard of buildings. And so I look forward to engaging the community and talking about our middle school that now has a very high bar to achieve once we've opened it. Yes.
Yeah.
Can I just ask a quick question?
Sure.
One of the things that Rich had brought up last spring when you guys moved in was the temperature variance in some of the rooms, some being particularly, it's hard to believe after coming off a heat wave, but too cold.
Yeah. So
and so I didn't know if over the summer things got worked out. You definitely had time to feel that out in the last week.
My understanding is we're still working that out. We have some rooms that are just notoriously cold, other rooms that are a little bit warmer. And so there's a couple things happening. One, we're learning how to make the appropriate adjustments. We're also helping staff to make sure that we know about the problem so we can adjust and look into it, because it's not always a huge problem. It just might be a quick reset. We had some pre-K classrooms last week that were climbing a little warmer than the rest of the building, but there are some rooms that we still need to investigate that are just too cold. And Bill is on it, and we're continuing to explore that. But you're right, it's a little hard to talk about something being too cold.
Okay, great. Okay, we can move on then to the other updates. We have a list of topics that were included in your packet. So I don't know if, Adam, if you want to take off on those or, okay. You're muted, Adam.
So I can, in the interest of time, I can go through quickly, and then Richard and Brian can potentially augment as needed. With regard to the cafeteria acoustics, the last time we met as a group, there was a discussion about some potential supplemental acoustic components. I've coordinated with Peter on those. While in the meantime, the acoustician had provided their first report, but had not yet provided their second field visit. Richard, do you know what the updated status is on that second site visit?
Yes, I do. Mark Reber is said to me that he's scheduled to return to the school tomorrow so that he can observe activity with students and then examine those same rooms again. And he's going to also look at some of the acoustic ceilings that are adjacent to the cafeteria. You know that there's a mezzanine with wood acoustics on the ceiling there, and there's also some wood acoustics underneath the stairs that as you come in from the main entrance. So he's going to take that and analyze those as well. I expect he'll probably have a report back to us sometime next week.
Yes. Perfect.
Adam, if I could just jump in on the felt. Alan Corson is working with two teachers on the upper floor, main floor, that will try that felt product. We're going to try to expedite that, get that up, see if there's a difference, and then make some decisions at scale. It seems to be a relatively quick process of procurement and installation. So we're looking forward to that. And hopefully in 2 weeks, I'll have more to share with you.
The question is, does it work? Right.
Yeah, right.
And that's just for the group, that's effectively just a modular tile felt system to provide some supplemental acoustics at the walls where there's blank wall to provide it. So that's the basis that we're talking about.
Peter, can I ask which rooms you're going to be doing that experiment in?
There is Lisa's room is a grade 2, and a kindergarten, Erica's room.
So
Richard,
if
you need the
so,
numbers.
Numbers would be great. So when Mark Reber shows up tomorrow, I can send him a message and tell him to look in those rooms in particular to take measurements there. And then maybe if I ask him to come back after that felt is concerned, I think he'll probably be willing to do it just to see what the difference is. That would be, I think, that would be useful for everybody.
I totally agree. Richard, I'll send that information to you directly.
I can send it right now.
Thank you very much.
Oh, thanks, Kate.
And next topic is the heat pumps commissioning meeting dashboard. So the item that Mary brought up in terms of some of the rooms being cold is something that was discussed earlier this week. I had a phone call with the commissioning agent because they're going and delving into the data. They already owe monthly reviews of the data as part of their services. But I had spoken with Bill earlier in the week, and then Principal McCoy also reported a number of the rooms are far colder than they should be. So there was already some review of some of the set points within the building monitoring system that seemed to impact it somewhat, but it doesn't seem like it's quite there. So the commissioning meeting group has the data in terms of which rooms are not performing correctly, and are looking into that to see what needs to be adjusted in order to get the rooms to not be as cold. In terms of the heat pumps, there was some initial success with, as we spoke about last time, insofar as eliminating some of the tripping issues. But in the email, I think it was yesterday, Bill had sent out, there's one of the heat pumps is still experiencing either tripping or some sort of alarms. So that's also a topic that's being reviewed by the commissioning agent and controls contractor and the mechanical engineer. As I mentioned, the kitchen installation on 8/25 went well. So thankfully, that seems to be behind us, so that's good. For the playgrounds, when we last met, there was one final supplemental review with the playground inspector with the drop testing, the impact testing. That testing did occur, and the adjustments to the equipment were made. So as Peter had mentioned, the playgrounds were open in time for school once that was signed off from the impact testing standpoint for the rubberized surface. For the monument sign, that was installed also before start of school. There's one last component that last I had spoken with the installer and with Bill Treach. They need to do the final hookup of the front lights, but otherwise the actual installation itself was done in time for school. See, Tony, I can pause.
Go ahead, Tony. Yes, go ahead, Tony.
I hate to say this, but the sign is too small. There's my input.
Can I make a no comment on behalf of everyone?
I'm not gonna say anything.
No, it's not too small. It's just fine. It's for small kids.
I'm going to respectfully disagree with you, Mayor. I don't think it's too small. It's perfect, just the way it is.
Yeah.
I will agree with the mayor, but it is what it is.
It's installed. It looks great.
It's installed. It looks good.
And then the final component is just the retention basin. There have been obviously there's been some heavy rains. There's not been any overflowing of the basin or anything to that effect. The stormwater management reviewer that goes out once a week and after every major storm has been out there reviewing the conditions, and he hasn't noted anything of an unsafe concern or something like that, which was obviously a potential concern given the heavy storms that had come through. So we're still, as the project team, we're still working on the appropriate path towards resolving the infiltration at the basin. But information on that is still forthcoming, and we'll keep the SBC posted once we confirm with town leadership and council about the next appropriate steps.
Okay, question, Steve?
Not so much a question, but an observation. I was over there last night for the open house, and I walked back to the basin, and I noticed water sheeting over the sidewalk and down into the basin. So I don't know if it's supposed to be graded that way, but there was like a literal river running down I guess it's the driveway, and then down the sidewalk and then into the basin. So I just figured I'd point that observation out because you would only see it if it's raining.
So I actually was sent some photos yesterday from Derek Delay, the town engineer, about just the path of water and that versus the design. This topic did come up about a month ago, I believe, in terms of confirming the design criteria. So I'll be sending those photos to Richard and Fuss and O'Neill to confirm that that's the intent, because at first glance, it just looks like there's a lot of water running down a sidewalk, but there was some provisions of swaling and the actual overflow of the site water sheeting that appeared to be intentional. But to your point, we'll double check to make sure that's what's supposed to be happening.
Okay, any other questions? Any other update items?
That was it on the sheet.
Okay, Richard?
Yeah, I want to circle back to the playground. So I know we have some back and forth emails between us and Newfield about the slopes on the safety surfacing. We are in disagreement about whether or not the slopes are installed per plans and specs. We'll continue that discussion, but based upon our landscape consultants, Richter and Segan, who went out to the site, but not that long ago, they took measurements and reported that the slopes do not meet ADA compliance. Gary Guimond, who was conducting that site visit, also called us and said, have you looked at the site light poles? The site light poles are significantly peeling paint. So I asked Jeff if he could take a closer look at it, and he did. Yeah. He spent Saturday photographing and counting the light poles that are on the site. And Jeff, I don't know if you want to report what you saw personally.
Jeff, you're muted. I don't know if you're talking, but
Can everybody see my screen?
yes.
Okay. All right. So given Gary's initial comment on some of the site poles, I took a walk there and just checked them all. These are the tall ones. All the bollards, the low ones, seem to be okay throughout the whole project, but every one of these that I have clouded in red appear to be failing in the finish. So as you can see, as we walk around, some are at the base, there's rust coming through, there's a streak sometimes going all the way to the top. Every pole has a slight different condition, some worse than others. Of the 37, 35 were pretty much failing, and these two up front seem to be okay for now. But I don't know if those are the last ones put in or what. So I know our the submittals that came through called for, they actually said they were going to be powder coated with a polyester powder coat finish. And I know there's discussions about whether it's a warranty item or not. I guess at this point we got to get it fixed, and it's debatable whether that has actually been finished according to the submittals appropriately or the specs.
Okay, thanks, Jeff.
So remedies, what's the remedy? Is this a replacement, or is it going to be stripped and repainted?
Well, I would leave it to the contractor on how he would want to proceed, but I think we need new poles. This is my opinion. I think new poles would be appropriate. You're going to have an electrician have to disconnect them, and probably the quickest way to do it is to have new poles readily available, so that when the electrician disconnects the old light fixtures and removes the pole, the new pole can be put up immediately. That's just my opinion. Newfield may choose to do it in a different way.
Randy, I can provide you an update.
Yes, thanks, Brian.
You know, contrary to popular belief, we still do take this stuff seriously. Even though it came in as a non-conformance, it is in fact a textbook warranty item. We've reached out to Ferguson, the electrical contractor, as well as the lighting manufacturer. They've agreed that it's their issue. They have committed to provide replacement poles. Ferguson has worked up a labor cost for the manufacturer, since they have to work internally together. And it's going to take, let's see, all we're waiting on is confirmation on how long it's going to take to get the replacement poles. Once they have them, it should be 3 to 4 weekends worth of work. Since it's an occupied campus and we need to be in and out of the building, shutting off circuitry and the like, we feel it best to do it on the weekends. So they've committed to do it over a few Saturdays. So the good news is replacement poles will be provided. As soon as we get some durations and actual dates, we'll share them with the committee.
Great.
I just want, that's great news, Brian. Thanks very much. And I'm glad you were aware of it and already on it.
Yep, you're welcome.
Okay. Other questions? Okay. Then seeing none, we can move on then. PCOs and procurement.
So for procurement, there are 2 items. The first is just a draft motion that was submitted with the committee packet. It's for $40, $43.70. There was some wireless access point components that were in coordination with Jamie, the IT director, were modified in the field, which slightly changed the unit cost on the supplied components. And that was, if you recall, there was an invoice last meeting that had addressed this vendor, Atlantic, but there was a discrepancy in funds that subsequently it was determined to be valid. So the request is for an increase in $43.70 to have them paid in full for the change in the field.
Mary?
I would like to make a motion to approve an increase in PO 22002808 by $43.70 for a total of $234,961.33 for IT equipment from Atlantic per field adjustments requested by our town IT department.
Okay, thank you, Mary. Is there a second? Rich, seconds. All in favor, please indicate. Any opposed or abstentions? Okay. Thank you.
The second item is for the stormwater monitoring service that I had mentioned earlier, Weston and Sampson. They have a proposal to increase their PO value by $7,450 for their ongoing services. Effectively, they are required to come out weekly and after every major storm event until effectively the summer rains are done. And then propose to cut back to monthly routine visits prior to doing the final closeout for after there's been 2 growing seasons and the site is stabilized and they do their reports. So this is a required monitoring service, and effectively they just need more time because there's additional the project site completion has been extended and there's been a lot of rains this spring and summer. So each time they have to come out.
I would make a motion to approve an increase in PO 79939 by $7,450 for a total of $34,120 for ongoing stormwater monitoring services by Weston and Sampson per their proposal dated September 11th, 2023.
Okay, thanks, Mary. Is there a second? Addison, thanks.
I'd like to make a Adam, could you put it back up again, please?
Yep.
I was really irritated, frankly, by the increase that they have on there, and even more, frankly, by the reason. Increase in unit rate from $180 due to greatly escalated project timeline. Here, these guys have this same job that they've been doing. They're simply returning. They already know how to do it. They didn't have to go out, I don't believe, and bid it. And we are simply giving them more work. Why shouldn't I be irritated at this?
So Weston and Sampson's proposal was done before construction started, and they've held their rates through not only through the anticipated into the project, but through another increase in their services to extend it beyond. So this is through all of the inflation that's going on. They had held their rates until now, is when they're requesting the increase. They have held their values for the post-construction inspection, the final stabilization inspection, and the permit registration from the original value because there's not a change there. It's the same scope of work. But the actual going out and paying, basically each one of these site visits is their individual going out there, driving out there, spending an hour on site, coming back, drafting the report, meeting with Derek DeLine, the town. So that was the request for the increase. And it didn't appear to be inappropriate based on the length of time, the additional time that the project has gone on, and that they had held their rates through one extension already.
It still feels like quite a big jump for about 25% rise. Given you're telling me this includes the drive out, the meeting, the inspection, and a meeting.
When the meeting is required to meet with the town officials about it, they include that as part of their site visit, regardless if they're able to do it just unfettered or if they need to talk with town staff and walk through. So I attended one of those meetings where we walked through with Derek DeLine, town staff, and it was a lengthier site visit. It was the same.
Thanks. Thank you, Adam.
Any other questions? Steve?
Is this just for the retention basin or is it for other elements they're looking at as well?
They review the entire site. And so it's a function of whether or not there's erosion controls established as part of the perimeter or establishment of grass. It's everything related to the project. And so they need to file with the town and with the state to close out the project, saying yes, the erosion controls of the grass and the seeding are all established. They confirm that on behalf of the town as part of the final project closeout.
All right, thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor. So all in favor of approving this PO increase? Any opposed or abstentions? Chris, are you in favor or opposed?
In favor.
Okay, okay. All right, thanks. Okay, and that brings us to the pay app. Invoices.
So this, if you recall, we had a pay application or the invoice packet rather at the end of last month, and we'll have one again at our meeting 2 weeks from now, most likely. But wanted to have this interim packet as well for some of the vendors that have closed out some of their services. So the vendor list includes that aforementioned $43 from Atlantic for the IT equipment, our commissioning agent, Colliers, ESC, who did some of the speaker work coordinated with town IT, Granite City, which was a meter procured by Bill, JP LaRue, our playground inspector, Swenson, who provided the granite stone wall cap and they delivered the actual material, WB Mason, who wrapped up some of their punch list work, and then the stormwater monitoring agent that we just spoke about, Weston and Sampson, for a total of $65,384.34.
Mary.
I would like to make a motion to approve the invoice packet dated today, September 14th, 2023, including invoices from Atlantic, CES, Colliers, ESC, Granite City, JP LaRue, Swenson, WB Mason, and Weston and Sampson for a total approval of $65,384.34.
Thank you. Second, Chris?
Sure.
Oh, you have a question?
And I also have a question. Okay. Adam, can you, maybe you did this, I was just taking some other notes, but on your travel expenses, did you decide that, why does it say 18,000 and then it's something like $500? Is that because you decided you were
overcharging? Reimbursable versus non-reimbursable.
Are you talking about the 3 line items on the cover, or is there something else?
Maybe I'm on the wrong
I think it's the
page.
reimbursable versus non-reimbursable.
And there's a second line. If you can put it back up.
Sure.
There were 2 lines where
Yeah, but the cover or the actual invoice?
It's the ones, where'd they go? Yeah, it's the one that's there's one for WB Mason, which is 189,000 in the amount column.
Yes.
This has been explained to me before, but what's the difference between the amount and amount approved, and why are they variant?
Correct. So what the town is paying is amount approved, or what the town is recommended to pay. The amount on the invoice, in terms of the bottom line, is shown here to assist the auditors with identifying the correct invoice. So to take an example from Colliers, our total invoice was $18,253, but the various buckets get split up accordingly. There may also be invoices where someone submits it. So, for example, someone submits an invoice for $2,000, but only $1,800 of it is prudent. It might show $2,000 here, but $1,800 here. And the example you brought up for WB Mason, this invoice is just the balance portion of it that was held in retention. So the total invoice bottom line will say 189, but there was the final release of the $10,000 from that invoice.
You just sort of answered the question, but not in the way I expected. The last part there, you said the final part. So is the 189,000, that's the total amount we have expected to spend on that particular invoice number.
Correct.
Right? But how do we know whether we're finishing it off or just starting it?
the invoice itself, the town has already paid for this particular invoice, the balance of 170 some thousand. So that gets tracked in the project financial document backups.
Okay.
So anything but before the committee is only the payment of what is appropriate to be paid from the scope of work submitted by that vendor at that time.
Okay.
But just if
Thank
I
you.
could jump in here, I think what Chris is asking, and I apologize, Chris, if I'm butchering it, but you're looking to confirm in this case, as Adam explained, that this happens to be the final installment, using WB Mason as an example, the final installment on this invoice of 189. There would be no way of knowing, looking at this table, that was the last payment as opposed to some
Correct.
interim payment. Okay. Yeah.
Correct. From this document, no. That information is tracked in the individual financial logs that are kept for the project.
Okay. Thank you.
If there's any question, I'm more than happy to tell you where we're at on any vendors or whatnot. It's just for succinct purposes for the invoice packet. That's how we try to compartmentalize the hundreds of vendors.
Mitch?
I'm a little oblivious on this, so sorry about that. I'm usually very busy with first graders going out to recess, but has the capstone been installed already?
No.
Not yet.
This was the invoice you're seeing today is for the materials that were procured separately through the town.
Okay, we have a motion second on the floor. The motion to approve the invoice packet. If there are no further questions, then all in favor of the motion, please indicate. Any opposed or abstentions? Okay. And that brings us to an executive session. Is it a motion, Mary?
I would like to make a motion that we move into executive session pursuant to Connecticut General Statute, Section 1-206 and 1-210B for discussions of contract revisions due to project delays.
Okay, thank you, Mary. Oh, and we got to invite in.
Oh, I'm sorry. And I would like to invite in Superintendent Dart, Principal McCoy, Town Manager Aylesworth, and from Colliers, Adam and Scott. Is Scott here today?
Yes, Scott's here.
Oh, okay. And Scott too. Oh, there you are.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, thank you, Mary, for the motion. Is there a second? Steve? And all in favor, please indicate. Any opposed? Abstentions, okay. Okay, then we will allow anybody that's not invited in can leave the meeting. We're not expecting any motions or anything afterwards. Otherwise, we can put you into a waiting room. Okay, we are now out of executive session at 5:17. We have a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Second, Steve, then all in favor, indicate, and we'll see you next time. Thank you all.
Thank you, Randy.